Hello, we're Sam and Joe from textileartist.org and we're absolutely delighted to welcome you to Stitch Camp.
In just 5 days, you'll have made your very own unique piece of mixed media textile art, even if you're a complete beginner. Your creative process this week will be guided by celebrated artist Gwen Headley, author of the best-selling textile design book Drawn to Stitch, which has hundreds of 5-star reviews online. This workshop started life inside the textileartist.org Stitch Club, which we'll tell you a bit more about when the time is right later in the week. For now though, what Gwen will share with you over the next 5 days is completely free and was described by Stitch Club member Jane Cook as less of a workshop and more of an inspirational creative masterclass. If inspirational masterclass sounds a bit scary, don't worry. You can even do this if you don't have much time to spare, because the process is broken into really manageable sessions day by day.
And it doesn't matter if you don't know even the most basic of stitches, because the techniques you'll use are really simple.
But as you'll discover, there's real creative power and potential in that simplicity. Plus, as you learned in the last video, you don't need any fancy materials. In that last video, Gwen gave some really inspiring ideas for how to be resourceful in the hunt for fabrics, threads, paints, and mark-making tools, so that you can create something vibrant, layered, and really personal.
If you haven't managed to watch the video from Friday yet, it's a good idea to go back and do that before you continue with this one.
So why not hit pause and click the link to Friday's Tools and Materials video now. So we're going to assume, if you're still with us, that you've chosen your 3 colours to work with, a dark, a medium and a light tone, you've gathered your tools and materials, and you're excited to start making some marks.
Hello, it's Gwen again, and I'm really happy to welcome you to the first day of our Stitch Camp. Today we're going to paint 2 pieces of cloth. On the first cloth, you'll aim for fairly solid marks in colour, leaving just a few areas of negative space. On the second cloth, you'll make marks in a more sparing way, leaving a little more space. The types of marks that you'll get will depend upon the mark-making tools that you've selected and the way in which you move them. Hopefully that'll be spontaneously and naturally and without any stress at all. The first thing you need to do is to protect your work area by taping down some newspaper, and then to tape down your first cloth on top of the paper, ready to be marked. I often use calico as a background cloth, but remember, you can use any natural fabric that you have available. Cut a strip or a square from any old used domestic cloth, such as a pillowcase, sheets, backs of shirts, unpicked garments, etc. Having perfect fabric is less important than getting started enjoying marking and creating with paint.
I find it better to stand up when painting cloth. It usually results in freer painting than when I'm huddled over it, but this is a matter of personal choice. I've started by using my credit cards. I've dipped them in, I've twisted them around, scraped them, twisted them, done wiggly movements, done spreadings, and I can do some twisty movements now, which gives me quite a nice variety of lines. I've used a brush that I rolled. I'm going to use my flat brush now, which gives me some nice little marks if I use it on its end. If I use it straight on, it's just a regular brush. But in the end, you see it's got a nice flatness to it and it gives me these little sort of seedy marks. But I can use it very lightly and get those sort of marks, which can be interesting to use. I'm going to use my smaller brush and I can roll that one. I'm going to use my bamboo pen and do some drawn marks. But I should do them fairly solidly. I'm making sure that I keep plenty of space so that I can get some nice visual links. I'm going to do some dots. I can get rectangles if I use the end of my chopstick. And if I use the other end, I can get nice dots. It's nice to have a variety in there, but this one does need to be fairly solid in colour. I can at any stage, if I want to slightly change the tone of this, I can just dip my brush into some water, make sure it's not a red brush, and I can just go along there like that, and it will spread the colour a little so that I get a sort of grey. If I want that gradation to colour, I can get it by just diluting the paint on the edge. Whoops, nearly put it back in the black then. Now I'm also going to print some circles. Oh, got a blob there. I like rolling these ones too. Now when I change to red, I'm going to do similar sorts of marks with similar sorts of tools. But what I'm going to do before that, I'll start with a scrape, maybe a twist. But whilst I'm using my red, I'm going to go back to the black and I'm going to put little traces of red in here. There won't be huge amounts, just little bits, because when we come to patch them, it's another visual link from one patch to another, because we can make those visual links with pattern, with mark, or with colour, and this opens up a lot of opportunities.
But more on that tomorrow.
There's the piece I started earlier. I've completed the red and I gave it a good few splatters with the end of my paintbrush just to give it some little splotty marks.
Now let's turn our attention to the second cloth.
I've started by using my black paint, and I've drawn with cotton wool buds, little dots, little dashes, and now I'm working with the cut-off end of a sugar stirrer, getting some slightly harsher marks. I'm going to twist. I can dab. Can't roll this one. But I could roll this one. This is a slightly smaller brush than I've used before. I can paint freely with it. I can't keep away from these circles. I expect they'll get out of my system soon. I'm going to do some drawing with a stick in a moment. And I find with the sticks, if I hold it at the bottom, as per normal drawing, I have good control over it. Well, quite. If I hold it at the top, whoops, if I'm looking for irregular sort of circles and lines, this is the way to do it, because when you're working at an arm's length, you don't have that control, and the whoops, and the marks tend to be sort of quite flicky because sometimes it bounces. I might put some of those across these bits here that I've done. And these ones give you very, very, very fine marks. It's the kebab stick with the nice blocked end as well. I might try my pen, my bamboo pen. What happens if I scrape a little bit with that and twist it? I don't know. It's quite nice to sort of find out these things. I notice I'm going from top to bottom. It's just the way I naturally work, but it would be a good idea to perhaps go in some other directions. I'm doing it again. Right. This is quite nice because it's like working with an italic pen. You get thin lines if you use it on its side, and then you get the fatter lines. Now again, with this brush, it's a long handled brush, and therefore if I hold it down there, I have some degree of control. If, however, I hold it at the top, whoops, it's much more difficult to control that mark, and sometimes that's what I like to do because I do tend to control things a bit much. Whoops. So you see in this one, we're doing lots and lots of little marks and not a great deal at the moment of denser marks in between. It's sort of the opposite to the last cloth that we did. Now I shall go on to the red. And just as before, I'm going to, while I've got the red there, I'm actually going to, I'll start off with it, just get myself into the feeling of red stuff. And then I think I will probably go and do, just as we did before, I'll put some red bits into here, just little bits here and there. Right, that's finished my mark making piece now. I've tried to put thicker marks on it and some thinner ones. I've considered larger ones, smaller ones. I've added some flicks of paint on it and used a few more tools. Please remember, these are not meant to be planned, composed pieces of cloth, just lively marks for use in smaller pieces with huge potential. Don't plan, relax, be free, just do it and enjoy.
One of the biggest barriers to getting started on a new project can be distilling all the ideas you have buzzing around your head.
What's so brilliant about working with a limited colour palette in the way that Gwen does is that it offers you possibilities, just not too many possibilities.
And that's the key to Stitch Camp, breaking down the creative process to make it manageable and enjoyable.
And to that end, we've made you a PDF workbook to go along with today's class. You can download it in the links underneath this video. After today, you'll have the basis for what will become a really beautiful and unique piece of textile art. And even if you're not 100% happy with what you create today, in tomorrow's class, you'll transform it into something entirely different.
We can't wait to see what you're making.
We're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for day 2.